This session is called Be the Hero to Drive Digital Transformation with Power Platform. I chose this because this whole Power Platform adoption, you can actually complement the digital initiative or digital enablement between your organization fairly easily. Whether it is for small enterprise or large enterprise like ours, you find that it can be done in a way that is very engaging and very fun for the people to get on board, right? So I'll be sharing in over the next 60 minutes or so our journey and how I did it, right, in Schlumberger. Recently we have been rebranded to SLB. Yeah. So all the color scheme has also been changed. You'll see that it is our new branding, the bright one. Yeah. So my name is Alan Chai. I'm the head of digital transformation and innovation for Risk to Integrity. I'm based in Houston, Texas. I've been here since 2019. It's actually the second time I'm back to US. I was here back in 2012 for 3 years as well. Yeah. So myself, I have been in the industry for 24 years. Yeah, 24 years in IT for energy industry. I have personally built over 200 apps, yeah, and trained over 450 citizen developers directly, yeah, across the world in about 40 countries, inside and outside SLB. Over the years, I have developed a kind of a package to get someone who knows nothing about Power Platform to be able to fly, right, and cruise on their own in about 2 weeks. Yeah. Depending on the background of the person. So if a person comes with no baggage, nothing, it usually easier than someone who comes in with lots of programming language. Actually, it's a kind of strange, but it is tend to be that way. If you give me a pro code, I try to turn them to low code. It takes longer than someone coming in fresh from school. Yeah. I have been around for 24 years. I'm actually an electrical engineer. Digital technologies, okay. I'm a digital maker in my company. I'm also the second most followed person in the company's Yammer after the CEO. So it's because of the content. People wants to learn. People wants to learn this new skill. So they are following me because of that. And over the 24 years, these are the locations, cities that I have been working and live in, spanning from Asia to Africa to Europe and in Houston. So averaging 2 to 3 years, I move once. And you can find me in Twitter, in LinkedIn, and as well as there is a blog article in Microsoft website, aka.ms/meetalan. You'll find our story, our journey, yeah, and it's a detailed write-up now then if you have time to read through it. So like Gita, I'm also a MVP. I'm also one of the 25 Power Apps champ. There are about 25 of us that Microsoft recognized around the world because of the contribution we brought into the platform. Yeah. And also I have this special poster that they made for me. They call it the face of the customer, voice of the customer. They chose one customer to represent each of the pillar in Power Platform. So I'm the face for Power Apps. And then we have Eric McKinley from PepsiCo, my counterpart in PepsiCo. He's the face for Flow. And then we have Keith Whiteling, the face for back then called CVS. Yeah. And then they're very good in making us look good. So this is the baseball card that they gave to the 25 Power Apps champ, and it was the president of digital transformation for Microsoft. This is his office in Seattle. When I visited him, so they actually have a game among the direct report to Satya is to see who will be the first one to collect all 25 cards signed. Mine is not on the wall because he was holding it. Yeah. And that's what I was talking about. The poster that they hang in Seattle campus is a reverse engagement tool, not to recognize, not so much to recognize us, but it's more for encouraging the software developers in Seattle on their impact to the world, because somebody who is writing, say, a function or a little virtual agent that help makers, empowering makers, how is that impacting them, the world, so that they want to hear from customers. So they get a few of us to state three things, right? So I consider three of my favorite things that make the difference. So from that, it helps the software engineers in Seattle to recognize how impactful they have contributed to the platform. And this was back when they presented the poster to me in Seattle. So our journey in Schlumberger, we started off in 2017 by moving, our files from people's users' laptop, PC to OneDrive. Right, so that's the 2017. Moving out our Exchange, our Outlook PSD file to Exchange Online. We spent a year just to do that because we have 90,000 users scattered across 2,500 locations all over the place, right? So some locations are very challenging with poor connectivity, with satellite connectivity, right? So those took a lot of time, right? So, and was very costly, but we did it. We did it in 1 year, moving everything to the cloud. I must say we are a bit behind. We are a bit behind a lot of our peers. However, it was much needed. And then by 2018, that was when the Office 365 waffle icons start appearing on our browser for everybody. And that's also when our IT decided that, hey, let's open it up and see what come up from it, right? So we open up the capability of Power Platform, Power Apps, Power Automate, BI, and Packages Tree, and then see what our people can do with it. Our population are made up of mainly technical folks, scientists, geologists. These are fairly technical. They are comfortable with the Office tool. They are comfortable with the programming tools, right? So when you open up tools like this in the platform, it's just a matter of time before somebody come up with some new stuff, right? So it was also back then in 2018 when I personally had a request to change something for the better for people. We had a fatality. Somebody well respected died in the office because of heart attack. So somebody, my health and safety director, came to me and say, "Alan, can we do something to turn this around? Right? We want to encourage people to be more active in their work life, in their life, and go run, encourage them to swim, take on some activities, and then get everybody to lock the mouse, right? And then create a campaign to say collectively, let's run across all the offices in Europe, which is about 25,000 miles, right? So he came to me, okay, can you develop something that is fun? But at the same time, he said he doesn't have money. So I said, okay. I remember I saw Power Apps. So yeah, this is a good cause. So I spent a weekend learning Power Apps. And then by Monday, I created a Fitbit app similar to Fitbit apps for Schlumberger. And then we launched it. We wanted to run it for 3 months. But within 2 weeks, it was so popular. We reached the target in 2 weeks, 25,000 miles. And then we let it continue to run, and then it started to spread across the world. At the end of 12 months, we got 400,000 miles. So that's like enough to go to the moon and back, right? And then we have stopped the fertility because of overworking, right? So that was a great story, right? And then from there, I was just doing it to to learn a new tool in a very safe kind of test environment without not without impacting business, but it is bringing in the digital capability to people's lives. And because of that, of the usage, I got 10,000 mile monthly active user on the first 2 weeks, and that kind of set the alarm bell to Microsoft. They saw the telemetry and say, hey, what is this app with 10,000 mile? Then they started contacting our IT and say, oh, this Alan. Okay, who is this Alan? Can we meet him? Right. So it's from there then that they start to uncover a lot of my apps, and then they realize that, whoa, our apps can do a lot more than what they envisaged in the beginning when they set the journey to. And then they invited me to start sharing more broadly the methodology I use, the UX UI that I put in place in Power Apps. So that was 2018. We were uncovering discovering the capability, right? And then by 2019, that's when we start enforcing value creation guideline in all the apps that we build, right? We want to turn all the opportunities of digital enablement into values, into ROI, right? So at the end of 2019, we created 10,000 apps as a company. Not just me, but the entire company. And in 2020, that's when we realized that, okay, how do we continue to grow, continue to scale up, but without making mistakes, without having new maker to learn to go through the same mistake that everybody has gone through, right? So how can we speed up the whole adoption? So we start putting in structure, start putting in guardrails. That's 2020, and then beyond 2020 is history. So today, these are our size, right? We have 27,000 Power Apps, 47,000 Flow, right? 1,200 Teams app, 50,000 self-service reports in Power BI. More importantly, we have 6,000 makers. These are active makers that are internal. they either produce regularly an app, a flow, or a BI somewhere, right? So, and they're very closely, it's an internal community, just like the user group that we have in Microsoft everywhere. The 6,000 makers, they're helping each other between using Yammer, using Yammer to glue them together. And we have various events, yearly event to have a competition, hackathon to bring them together as well, to challenge them in terms of innovation. Yeah. So back in 2020, we created the world fastest adopted app for the COVID-19 Stay Safe app that was created by Georgia, and she was recognized as the backend world fastest #1. And then Microsoft called me 2 months later after we created the app in January 2020. And then Microsoft called me in March saying that, Alan, can we borrow this app and templatize it as a crisis communication toolkit for the rest of the world? The last I heard was that this app was reused, downloaded, and used, installed by more than 5,000 enterprises, which is a great story by itself. And I have a section that cover that on how she achieved that in a very short timing. And because of that, of her contribution, she was recognized as one of the 25 Power Apps champions. So a lot of questions people keep asking me, how did you achieve all these great stats and all this great achievement in terms of adoption, right? So if you have one slide that you can take home today, you'll be this one. So before you embark on this kind of low-code journey, my advice would be try to create some sort of structure in terms of who does what. Yeah. So especially for large company like us, we have 100,000 users. IT department itself is about 3,000 people across the world. 3% of the company, to me is fairly large, right? So you need to have clarity in terms of who does what, right, inside IT as well as outside IT. So what we did in the CIO, our CIO came up with this thing. It's called the 5 layers of digital execution. We are a SAP uh, ERP implementation that we spend significant amount of investment and took us about 7 years to implement. So he realized that, hey, this is a huge investment. We need to protect that. And we've been engineered, we tend to customize things too much, right? Up to a point that we cannot upgrade ourselves. So he said, okay, let's minimize the customization in SAP. But at the same time, we know that SAP cannot address all the business processes that we have. So what do? We create a layer of a layer of people they call digital products. These are people who look into specific workflow that SAP has a gap. And from there, we start building full stack pro code kind of solution on top of SAP. Usually, it's a global solution for all business unit, business line, and it takes about 1 to 2 years to build. Right? It's supposed to last a bit long, 5 to 7 years. And these are all central IT capability. So the CIO see that that's great, right? But then he also being bombarded by the business and say, hey, 1 to 2 years to build a product is too long. Sometimes it's just small problems that I want to solve right now, right? If you use 1 to 2 years to turn around, the problem might have already disappeared. So those are the smaller problems. So what do? We say, okay, let's create a layer on top of a layer of capability, make out of different technology stack capability. We call it the studio. So these are mobile solution, BI analytic, automation, more collaboration, right? And those are the few mentioned capability, and they are aiming to turn things around, churn out solution within 3 to 6 months. And these are all IT, right? So the business come in to us and say, hey, I have this problem. I need this solved in 6 months time. How much would it cost? Okay, we tell them, okay, it's $50,000 to build this little app, and you will have it in 3 months time. Fine. Then the business bring the money in, we build it, we cross-charge the solution. This is all good. Then he said, okay, now we solve the agility, right? So we have a 3 to 6 month agility. However, these are all centralized capability in IT, right? We have a centralized software house in India as well as in Colombia and Houston. So with that, he saw another problem. We say that being centralized, yes, we are highly efficient. However, we lack visibility to the fire on the ground in operation. So, which also means that we are very distant away from the real problems. Our understanding of the problem is not as good as someone that is right next to the fire. So then he said, okay, why not we bring this capability to solve each problem, challenges, business challenges to the field? That is when we start this decentralized IT. We say, okay, in the business unit, we go to train them with some sort of a digital capability using low code and say, these are the people who are dedicated to do digital solutioning, but they belong to the business. They could be HR people, it could be a supply chain guy, it could be a finance person. They each have their own digital cell, making up of anything between 1 to 5 people per group. We get them trained, get them certified in Power Platform. And then because they are sitting right next to their business, they see the day-to-day problem and they resolve it using those tools that they have. They have the same capability, but now the big difference is they bring in innovation. Right? They're now able to solve the problem that meet the business needs very, very closely. Right? And they have the ability to run a few iterations between their business without the need for IT to get involved. So that shortened a lot of the development cycle. And then at the end of the chain is what we call the self-service. These are anybody in the company who wants to use the tool. We say you're welcome to do so. However, these are not dedicated people. These are people who have a day job, right? But they're using Power Platform to improve their business workflow, their productivity workflow, right? So with this, we have been practicing these 5 layers of digital exhibition for more than 5 years now, and it has been adopted in Microsoft Power Platform adoption best practices. You can find the write-up in Microsoft documentation, and there's also a Gartner white paper on this about us. So I was uh, taking care of these 3 layers, getting them to work together, and also championing the adoption and the be the ambassador for the platform for these 3 layers. Yeah. So one of the very first thing that we did after putting the house in order, we did this digital culture and cultivate the corporate digital culture. When we embark on this Power Platform, one of the very common question that people ask is, why do I need digital? So we start educating our population to start measuring in terms of people's maturity level in terms of digital absorption. So we have people that say, hey, no, thank you. Don't give me a smartphone. Don't give me a smart device or tablet or whatever. I'm just happy with paper. Uh, those are what we call digital resistant. They don't want a smartphone. They just want the old way of doing things. We call them the digital resistant. Then we have people who start playing with Office 365, doing a bit of little flow here and there. Yeah, we call it the digital explorer. Yeah. And we have people who start making apps, start making BI, impacting a little team around them, 2 or 3 people, 5 people, right? Then we also have people who start evolving themselves to, okay, start impacting their business group, the business unit, bringing the digital solution. And then we have people who bring global change, global disruption to the entire product line, the entire division, right? So that's the highest level. We measure them based on these 6 points, how much value they create in terms of ROI, how compliant are they in terms of our processor, and then the technology adoption, how broad are they? Are they just a BI house, or they are able to do the entire Power Platform capability? Innovation and continuous improvement is also the stress in terms of how we push measure the maturity of the digital capability. Training and culture is also include training and evolution of people's career path. And between the group also we measure them, especially those transformer and beyond. We also want to measure how well are they in terms of sustainability of their solution. Is there the capabilities between the group to maintain the apps, right, rather than just an individual. So my biggest challenge is beside the culture stuff is time, right? So most of the time people come to me and say, no thanks, Alan. I know you meant well, but I just don't have the time. Too busy. I'm happy with how I do things, right? So that's when I show them this slide, and that's when they start to realize that, huh, what is that tool logo? I have no idea, right? So all they know is Excel. They're doing their job with Excel, but they have no idea what this tool is. But they can see that, hey, this is a circular. I'm dragging something with a square view, right? So perhaps something is I have something that they should consider, right? So that is my message to most of my community is sometimes we have to stop and make time for ourselves to reskill and change our views, right? So in a large enterprise, if you ask me, how do I provide guardrails or governance? There's three things that we do, right? I emulate the concept of how you run a restaurant. Okay? You go to a Michelin star restaurant, they're able to churn out the same dish and on the same quality every single time a customer walk in, right? How they do it is because they have a recipe, they have a way of cooking, right? So using the same thing, I need to, how do I ensure my 6,000 makers are able to produce digital apps, digital BIs, automation in the right way, a safe way, and without making the repeating the same mistakes that the early adopter has gone through, right? So we have this thing called digital playbook, which is what's the recipe, the digital recipe to do things right. So inside our playbook, we explain from how you should connect to the corporate data, how you should control the permission, what kind of a data privacy control you need to apply on your solution before you can go live, and a lot more, right? How do you sustain the app after that, right? So because everybody build app, but then what if this app become viral and then you have changed job, you have rotated and do another role, like me, right? I'm changing role every 2-3 years. Who is going to maintain the 200 plus app that I created, right? So those kind of stuff, we have a certain governance and guardrail in the playbook explaining how to do things correctly, the right from the first time, right? So that's what's the recipe. Then second one is what's in the menu. You walk into a restaurant, you have a menu, they tell you what they can offer. The same thing for when you run a digital solution uh, portfolio for your company, you need to have an app store, a digital store that explain uh, what's already out there, right? So if somebody come along and say, I have this great idea, Alan, I'm going to build this app, I will say, stop, go check the store. If there's already something similar to your idea, why not just join them, right? Join the same app or just pull the app and reuse it, right? So you don't have to reinvent the wheel, don't have to waste company resources to build the same thing 10 times, 20 times, right? For example, we have a very popular app, which is managing our vehicle fleet, right? A fleet of a vehicle that is going to the operation, to the field to do job. Every single country, every single base has a need for that. If I allow every single one in them to go build their own power apps to manage the vehicle, we're going to end up with thousands of apps doing the same thing, right? And the worst part is we have thousands of people going through the whole learning cycle to build the same app. I say, okay, why not just build one and let everybody download it and use it, right? So that is the whole idea of using a digital store to create visibility. And yes, this store was built in Power Apps itself, right? So why not we lead by example and use it that way? Yeah. And then we have this picture is a bit old now, it's 2019. We call it digital pipeline, right? So like running a restaurant, you need to know who is cooking what in the kitchen, right? So all these digital cells that I have across the world, I need to know who is cooking what solution right now, with the same idea of avoiding duplication, avoiding reinventing wheels by hundreds, thousands of people, potentially thousands of people having the same idea. So you need to know what is coming out and set the expectation of the business stakeholder to know that, hey, I want this, but this one is being cooked by somebody. It should be available in 2 weeks' time. So let's hold on and wait for that. So again, it's important to have a great visibility. So this one is actually a Power BI. So what can you do to accelerate adoption and ROI? So very often people tell me, say, okay, you have all these great ideas, the guardrail and stuff. Ultimately, how did you convince your CIO or CFO for the funding, right? To get the license, to get the to invest in the premium license for Power Platform? And how at the end of the day is the ROI, right? The CFO or CIO wants the IT to demonstrate that if I put in $1 million here for the license, when can I get back the ROI? And how many times can I get back, right? So if I put 1 million, I expect to be able to save some sort of IT cost somewhere, right? In a year or two. Uh, it has to be a few X. It cannot be 1X, then it doesn't make sense, right? And to do that, I have a few programs that kind of accelerate the entire adoption at enterprise level. So three big one one is create your own digital catalyst program. Yeah. What do I mean by that? That is like digital your champions program. Identify uh, key digital maker and then let them drive in their hotspots to accelerate the usage of the tool. Right? I will give you a few examples later. And then organize innovation events like hackathon. Right? Hackathon is a very good way to drive and onboard and recruit new makers. Yeah. We run hackathons every year, and Gita also support us in a couple of years, last couple of years, coming into as our special guest speaker. So we have actually last year 2,000 participants from around the world, right, in one single hackathon. It was a very large event, and you are able to embark a few hundreds, a few thousand new makers every year, and that itself help accelerate the learning, the organization conversion of skill set inside the organization. And third point, while doing all this program, one very important practice is to enforce business value creation policy. What do I mean by that? When we build apps, we challenge the business and say, I have a great idea. I want to build this app. We always challenge them and say, does it create any value to the company? If there's no value creation, don't do it, right? Because we do not want to have fun apps. Fun apps, yes, for fun, but what's the point? If it's inside hackathon, yes, you can do your fun app in there. You can do a test, you can do a lab, yeah. But when it comes to production, we do not want to spend $50,000 on an app that doesn't create any value to the company. At the end of the day, we need to show our item. So 3 points of that to accelerate adoption and be able to answer to the stakeholder on the investment. So the champions program, right? So this is key because it helps you spark the adoption across the company. Yeah. So back in 2020, I created this mission for Schlumberger. I said I want to clone myself 20 times, and I want to accelerate the adoption, scale, speed up. How do I do that? So I identify 20 top makers in the company, elevate them as my digital trailblazer, right? And be able to use them to get the rest of 100,000 users to run, right, without repeating the same mistakes. So I call them digital special agents. Each of them, they were given a agent code 001 all the way to 020, right? And they are strategically planted in different business units to drive the digital transformation between their business unit. For example, Georgia was the lady who built that COVID Stay Safe app that Microsoft took and templatized for the world. She was with our health and safety department for 2 years, driving digital transformation there. And then last year, I promoted her and planted her in HR, yeah, a corporate HR function. Once came to me and said, and then they like to drive digital transformation for HR. They need a digital cell leader. So that's where I promoted, moved her to Houston, and she drives the transformation in between HR. And then we have agent 2 replacing Agent 1 in HSC in London, and so on and so forth. So a bit of her, Georgia, she was based in London. She started as an intern. She was my first guinea pig that go through the program, and this was her COVID-19 Stay Safe app. She built it in 3 hours, right? And between 24 hours, it was achieving huge more, and in more as a monthly active user, and it got picked up by Microsoft, yeah, and that's how it, Microsoft recognized the impact to the platforms, and by reusing her app uh, to template it to the rest of the world. And I get them, each of them had a jacket with their own QR code and the agent code on the sleeve. I get them to take picture on the streets. This one, she was based in London. So I say, go down the London street. We were trying to catch the red bus, London bus, but we couldn't get one. Each get a package, and then they have to announce themselves on Yammer to be known to their business. And it's fun, yeah. Hopefully you can see the video. So while you create your champions program, don't forget about making it fun, because it doesn't need to be dry, right? It has to be engaging, and then from here you can take it further. So I share a lot of this example, and I have friends in other companies like GSK. Simon used to run that, and then he created Power Rangers, using the Power Rangers team to recognize his digital trailblazer champions as Power Rangers. So you can uh, be creative. Yeah. So I also have BMW. I spoke to BMW. They also copy the same thing and they call it something else.
Alan, I was hoping to see your picture on top of all those agents with the title Agent M.
So we have M and Q. Yeah. So uh, so they were sort of deciding whether Alan is M or Q. And I also have many questions, people asking me who is 007. So I realized that it's difficult when to give the 007 to anybody, because I give to somebody, I will make the rest of them upset, okay? Because everybody wants a 007. So at the end, 007, the shirt is actually in Microsoft, in Seattle campus. I presented to Microsoft to reflect our partnership with them, because there's no one better to wear the shirt than Microsoft as a team. That's just to reflect our strong partnership with Microsoft. So next section, I'm going to give you a quick browse through some use cases, right? So this 10 screen was actually my first 10 apps back in 2018, right? It still looks okay to me, 2018. It's about 4 years old now, but if I reflect back, it seems to be still looking pretty okay, right? In today's standard, even. So when I embarked the journey, I started with the principle that I want my Power apps to look and behave like native apps, right? So if you all recall, back in 2018 or before, most apps show up as the three-screen apps, the dull blue, standard blue, right? And most people make apps that way. When I get into the platform, even my very first app for the Fitbit apps, yeah, it didn't look like this. It didn't look like the three-screen app in Power Apps. It looks like one of these, right? Because I apply the concept of a UX first, right? So Also, one of the main reason why I want to do it this way is because I want to challenge my community to make sure that they put UX first in drive in building the apps because it helps in adoption. It's important to have apps that looks really stunning, apps that will have the user come back for more, right? So we did it that way, and as we evolve over 3 4 years, now apps become much more mature in the sense that they no longer uh, stay as an app. Yeah, I have people who build solution like this that I call it solution because it's a combination of almost the entire suite, right, of the Power Platform coming together to produce something good, right? So this is what we call an Ask Me Anything app. So during COVID time, right, a lot of companies cannot do in-person meeting, right? So my leadership team, the president came to me, one of them say, and then I used to do this town hall, this round table in person. I have 200 or 300 people in front of me. When they have a question, they raise their hand. And I have an obligation to answer the question right there, right? So that was pre-COVID. Then during COVID, all these were gone, right? So how can I address that? I still need to do town hall as a leader. So they did it in Teams, right? And in Teams, there's so many questions coming in chat. It's very difficult to follow through and very difficult to talk and type right to respond. You say, okay, how can we address it? So I say, okay, let's create an app called Ask Me Anything. And then we allow people to ask questions, really any questions, right? In that, and then the question will make its way to Teams that channel that managed by the leadership team, and the question will show up as the adaptive cards, yeah, with the who asked it and what's the question, and then the leadership team can then answer right there, and then once it's answered, the question has disappeared, right? So he loves it because that he kind of be able to emulate that question and answer during town hall or round table, right? And we start tracking it. So the president put his mandate to his team and say, any question that come in to this Ask Me Anything, it has to be 100% answer, right? It's just like town hall. When somebody raises a hand, you have the obligation as a leader to answer it right there. You cannot run, right? So we need to emulate that. And second thing is uh, because this is coming virtually, so he said you must answer, but you must answer between 48 hours. Right? So at least we have a time frame. Yes, you may not be like in the town hall right there. You have 1 hour, you answer during the 1 hour, but this is at least we have 48 hours to respond. It becomes super powerful in the sense that engagement with the people. You can have an engineer that is somewhere out there in the desert, fire a question in the app, and between 48 hours, he or she get a response from president directly, right? So that's super powerful in terms of engaging with people. Then it got so popular that we say, okay, we have categories of question. Question for HR, question for finance, blah, blah, blah. Right? Then the president say, what about me? So we create one category called Ask Donnie, because the president is called Donnie. And instead of ask the president, it sounds too formal. We should ask Donnie. So ask Donnie became the most popular category. Yeah. And then we have our pro dev. We're playing with the AI builder in here to recognize some risks on the floor. So using the AI builder to recognize water spill and then create a uh, what we call incident report, right? So we have this risk identification report. So we're trying to evolve it to the next level. We have one of the pro dev working on this, and he spent 25 hours to build this. That Ask Me Anything was built by one person in 2 days. So, one, uh, this is actually my favorite app back in 2018 when we started going into the digital transformation. A lot of our material turned into video. So video popping up everywhere in Yammer, SharePoint, OneDrive, people start sharing left, right, center, right? Want to have the ability to push the right video to the right people. So I created this Netflix of our own, right? Uh, and I built this overnight breakfast. It's really simple. It's just two galleries. Right? We call it galleries in gallery as well, just to emulate this whole user experience. Where I can capture people's reaction to the video, whether they like it or not, right? And then it ended up not just a video app, but it start replacing our digital signage, turning our digital signage into interactive signage. And then we have people walk to the cafe, right? So rather than standing there to look through the video that's in the past, look through the video in the signage, they can then self-serve, choose the right video that they want. And the same application was reused for training, for user manual, user guide for customer, right? With plenty of use cases can evolve from here. And this one is also interesting. We have a citizen maker. So anyway, this is we have turned our cybersecurity certification from a boring form into Who Wants to Be Millionaire. It literally gamified the entire cybersec certification process in a fun way. Right? So we realized, oh, millennials, they're not just there to take the test, they want their score to be up there on the top of the chart, and want to beat their colleagues. So we had the opportunity, because of that, we had the opportunity to teach them more subjects and more topics through the game. Lastly, there's something wrong with my slide. So this is actually our business orchestration solution. We use the entire Power Platform to build a cross-charging of internal costs. So we have a business unit across the world. Some costs they want to send back to the HQ to cross-charge, right? So my HQ finance controller came to me and say, and then it's just too manual right now they have. So they use just 2 person looking through all the email submission that with the Excel's attachment to say what is this cost for, what's amount, and when is it due, blah blah blah. So I say, okay, tell me what are you checking? So they say they were checking for 4 things. So whether the status is ready in scope, estimate is ready for that, and whether it's between the tolerance of submission. So from there, I say, okay, let's turn this signal into traffic lights, right, in Power BI. So this is actually Power BI with Power Apps embedded. So with that, things that are not for greens, the controller, the finance controller can then do an override and say, okay, I just need to look at those that did not get passed, right? So we passed through the submission, 15,000 of them, and out of that, about 12,000 are touchless. You just pass through that for all green, right? And then they just need to focus on those that didn't get through and manually to review, right? So which is just about 15% of them, right? And then from here, we realized that, hey, they can get the approval status within 30 minutes, yeah, and pass the whole solution in total recharge of $1.2 billion. And then at the end of the year, I candidly try to tease my CFO and say, if I turn off these two, how many controller do you need to hire to be able to produce, to keep these stats, right? To say, process 15,000 of them in 30 minutes. You say, we calculated it's about 107 FTEs. Yeah, so that's huge. And the the solution was put together in about 5 days. Yeah. So that's everything. So from me, I like to open the floor for any questions. Yeah.
Alan, thank you so much for that walkthrough. It was fantastic to see how you have your framework, with all the layering starting from all your single line of system of records like SAP, and then having your digital studios and your cells, and just how you have them all wrapped up. And I did have a question. I was wondering, what challenges have you faced? Because you have a global presence for the platform. This several different domains and teams and sectors working, and at the pace that you would want to evolve and innovate has to match with how the modern cloud space is innovating as well. So just trying to see, like, do you have any lessons learned, any challenges that you've experienced that you'd like to share?
Yeah. For large enterprise like us, the the biggest challenge is usually the licensing, right? To to license the entire organization on premium is very costly, right? Uh, Based on the sticker price, it's very costly. So if you look at us, the sticker price right now is $10, right? $10 per month per user. And if you have 100,000 user, that is 1 million a month. It's 12 million a year. I can't go to the CIO and say, oh, give me 12 million a year just to have a premium licensing. It won't work that way, right? The CIO will say, okay, you need to demonstrate, like I mentioned earlier on, I need to demonstrate when can the investment be returned, right? And how many times, yeah, how many X. So that is the challenge. You need to be able to showcase that I put in $1 million, and I can say, tell him, okay, within 1 year, I will save you $2-3 million on existing IT costs because of this, right? So need to be able to demonstrate that. And it took us a while. We we were on just standard licensing without premium connector for 3 years. Yeah, we were only on board to premium last year. Yeah, what I did was I did a bit of research on some legacy application, find out their run costs, and say, okay, if you give me $1 million, I'll be able to decommission, displace this three or four legacy system that are running 3-4 million a year. So with that, I'm able to then convince the CIO to put in the investment, right? So that is one big challenge. And then second challenge is you will realize that as you embark into this journey in large organization especially, you have many people with different opinions, right? People want have a different preference. We might have a preference on our platform, but you do have other people in the organization who prefer some other platform, right? So you will have multiple views, and how that's also more on the challenge of convincing the organization on which platform is more suitable for the environment, right? And fit for purpose on for the price, right? So that is another big one. Uh, the third one is how do you make time for to create this wide and this need for people to reskill, right? So that itself is not easy. You need to work very closely with the HR, HR to build some sort of a learning development program as part of the corporate drive, so that people feel the need to go learn the new skill. Right? So those are a few key things for large enterprise. And it varies as well. If you go into a not so big companies, you might have a different problems. Yeah. And the 3 points I mentioned may not be applicable. Yeah.
And I think another common challenge that we see, at least with clients that we work with, just IT in general, right? Being able to bring in the low-code platform and being able to coexist with other services and tools that exist. There's always shadow IT, there's technical debt, and all the things that IT would gate it out. There's some challenges that you experience there, trying to get that out the door, convincing ID to see the real value of implementing or even adopting these tools.
So
Yeah,
the topic on the shadow IT is it has always been there, right? So the way we compare is before having Power Platform, we have people building solution in Access, in Excel, right? That IT doesn't even have visibility to what's out there, right? We just know that we have thousands and thousands, or if not millions of Excel solution out there in people's OneDrive, right? And they're sharing data everywhere. But now with our platform, at least we know we can from the COE toolkit, we know who is building what, how many people are using it, right? So at least you have visibility to your risk, right? Compared to the old days with the Excel access, you have no idea how many out there.
sense. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute and or post the question in the chat.
Yeah, when you're talking about value creation with these tools, a lot of it will be about reducing cost, improving processes, decreasing time to accomplish things. When you go about tracking that, when you were going through your 5 layers slide, and you have visibility of all these apps that are being built, does an app have to get to a certain level of usage for you to then say, okay, hey, let's go see what that app's doing and what kind of value it's creating, and then that goes into your value creation portfolio to prove out this is the value that the company's getting from the investment? Kind of talk through, how you go about coming up with those numbers and when you start trying to get those.
Okay, it's a very good question. So we in our playbook, right, the digital playbook, one of the first things that one of the first few items that they ask is what we call a decision tree uh, logic. We ask them about 15 questions, 15 questions that go through things like what kind of data are you processing in your solution? How many users are you expecting to use this solution? Is it crossing multiple business unit, multiple region, or just local, right? Through the few questions, we also things like another one important one is how many integration behind in terms of the data sources that you need. Based on all these questions, we were able to determine to say, okay, this solution that you're about to build is medium complexity or high complexity or low complexity, right? So we can determine that complexity and also determine the sensitivity of the data, right? And depending on the outcome of that, they will then be recommended to say, okay, based on this, you should go to the cell, digital cell, or the studio, or the portfolio. Okay, and that decision tree mapping helps us to make sure that somebody has an idea and this big idea is going to go global and is touching on HR data. Then we say, okay, don't even try to do it on the digital cell. Go straight to the studio. The studio will handle it for you in a more uh, industrial way because the studio has product, the equipped product, and also the sustainability post deployment, right? Whereas the cell, we keep them medium or low level complexity, uh, limited to between the business unit, right? So there are various metrics down there that we follow and guide. to determine which layer do what, right? So that's one. And then on your question on the value creation, we actually follow a white paper published by Forrester. Yeah. Forrester, if you go to their website, you can find that they call it economic values of digital economic value calculator. I studied that white paper and then I created an app to measure ROI based on that economic value. Essentially, there are three main factors. One is what we call uh, cost avoidance. Yeah. So which means that someone going to build an app, and because they build an app to stop a PO going out to buy a new software. Okay. So and somebody about to buy a software from the street, yeah, and the PO is already signed but haven't sent out. But we managed to stop it because we realized that hey, we can actually build this easily. Yeah. So that's called cost avoidance. You stop a cost that don't have to be set, right? First angle you can measure from that. Second one is a productivity gain, which would what you mentioned about saving time, be more efficient. I used to perform this task with 5 hours. Now it's 2 minutes. Yeah. So then we use that to convert the number of hours saved, or we call it number of hours given back to the business. So that's productivity gain. And then the third one is what we call business impact. Business impact is as a result of your solution, you are generating uh, uh, free cash flow for the company, or you are generating better profitability for the company. So that is business impact directly. We have two financial KPIs that we track corporately, and you need to have show how well your solution can impact the two. Okay. I also want to have a disclaimer here. Not all apps can do all three pillars. Okay, all three pillars of that ROI calculator. Most of our solution has the productivity gain. Right, that is the bare minimum I would expect. The cost avoidance one, which is the first one there, is only we only recognize when the PO is signed, approved, about to go out, you stop it. So it's very quite rare as well. But the business impact we do have, and usually the business impact will show very large number because take example, I have a Power BI solution that track with what we call it unbilled. Unbilled means we finish our job for the client, but the client hasn't received an invoice from us. Why? We do not know why. So we created a solution to track all these issues and find out what's wrong with that. We have completed the job, but the invoice has not gone out yet. Some can we started the process that it was an average of 32 days of unbilled days, which also means that the company is supposed to have the cash in, right? 32 days ago. But because of some inefficiency internally, it was delayed, right? So we create solution to improve the process, and we brought it down to 15 days. So that's 17 days of efficiency gain was converted to about $17 million of free cash flow. We bring in $17 million in quicker, right? Now the company has $70 million cash extra, right? That we deserve for to have it. It's just that our inefficiency causing the $70 million not to come in quicker, right? So that is what we call business impact, right? So we want people to start thinking that way, using that white paper logic of three pillars. If you go dig up Forrester digital economic calculator, that will help you understand the concept of it. Yeah.
Thanks, Alan. That was terrific insight. One other question I had for you is you said it was 3 years, right, until premium licensing became an option for the
For us.
team. Yeah. And so that means you were building off of Office 365 data sources,
Sure.
correct?
Sure.
SharePoint specifically, yeah. So when you were in that phase of your life cycle here with the Power Platform, were there difficulties in governance in general, since people had licenses to that and they could build off of that? I imagine just in the default environment, that's the default behavior of the tool. So did that pose challenges for you as you were starting to on-ramp it and see some value creation from the tools?
Absolutely, yeah. So because of the lack of premium infrastructure, we were not able to do a sensitive data, data sensitivity solution when the data require extra protection, right? So those kind of solution, we will have to say, you can't do it as a citizen developer. You need to go to the pro dev and they will have to build it in a pro code, yeah, with SQL instead of Dataverse, because we don't have premium uh, license to use Dataverse back then, right? And this kind of solution will have to go to the studio, which are managing the high complexity lab, and they have to come up with custom solution. And that also become costly, right? Because you take longer time and you take you need higher more spring cycle, right? And it costs more people to come up with those solutions. We were not able to turn those high complexity application into local, right? Because of a lack of premium infrastructure and license. Uh, fortunately we have the what we call the data privacy qualification process. Every apps before they go out, they have to go through this kind of qualification process. The lawyer will say, hey, you are touching on people's birthday, you're touching on people's pay, right? You cannot store it in SharePoint. End of story. The lawyer say that, that's it. You can't build it in Power Platform. So the first 3 years was hard, right? So whenever they have ideas like this, people will have to shelve it, or if they have funding, they go to the studio to do it. Yeah.
Thanks, Al. We really appreciate you taking the time tonight out of your schedule to come share. Thanks again.
Anyone
I
else
had
have
a,
any? Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I had a question about that data governance. I kind of came a little bit late, but I don't know if you mentioned this, but how in your data governance, how important was tools like COE kit? Did you use any of the internal like kits to help you do data governance?
Yes, we developed the COE kit, the early version. In fact, the what you saw today, the COE kit, the design was all from me, right? And then we share with Microsoft to templatize it and put into GitHub after that. So actually, we use COE toolkit a lot, yeah, because COE toolkit give us visibility on what's happening in the tenant, yeah. Not just data, but also the tracking of who builds what, right? And then which app or which flow become often, yeah, when people change role, right? So those are important for housekeeping, and also we use it to track apps that nobody use. Yeah? You build hundreds of them, thousands of them, and they're just sitting there. And how do we clean up? Right? So we use COE toolkit to do a bit of housekeeping once a year. Notify the owner and say, hey, your apps have been sitting here for 24 months. There's not a single session count in the last 18 months. What do you want to do with it? Right? Sometimes not all apps needs to be active all the time, right? So we do have apps that are seasonal, right? Apps that are used only during certain event, especially apps that are built for managing crisis. You do not know when's the next crisis going to come up, right? And a lot of people say they create technical debt, but some apps, they are there just stand by for the next event to be used, right? Technical debt, I pay I pay a flat fee in terms of my premium licensing. Whether I build 1,000 app or I build 100,000 app, it costs me the same. So I feel that you need to balance the usage by having good housekeeping. So using COE toolkit or develop your own Power BI with the audit log integration can help you significantly to keep the tenant clean, right?
Yeah, I find that having a COE kit really, especially if you have like non-dedicated makers, it's incredibly important to have that to make sure your default environment is cleaned. How can you scale all of this down? Like I don't have that kind of budget or manpower. How do I scale that but also have digital adoption?
Scale it down. You can scale it down by doing regular housekeeping, right? Instead of us being a large company, we do it once a year. You can probably do it every 3 months, right? And then use automation. If you don't respond within 30 days, it's self-audit, it's self-cleanse. So you kind of giving them some sort of ultimatum to respond, right? And that will help you enforce some sort of a cleanup. And default environment is a mess, right? However, we know it's a mess, but at the same time, we know that it's safe in the sense that we apply very tight DLP policy. If you produce something in DLP in default environment, your apps cannot have the data flowing out of the company. So we know that's the first step to protect, right? And it's like in the past, you have a bunch of Excel everywhere, right? But Excel people can email out, right? Data can leak out. But whereas you put a Power Apps or Power BI, you put in a default, you set DLP and they can't talk outside, so it still retained safely inside the company. And then you use a COE toolkit to see which apps have been shared to everyone in the company, right? So that's when you start scrutinize the data privacy, right? Even for us in default environment, we disable the ability to share to everyone. Yeah. So that people do not accidentally, build a HR payroll app and then share to everyone in the company, right? So those things will not happen. Your COE toolkit will also tell you an app was shared to how many people. So from there, you can get a bit of indication the risk level of each app.
Yeah, it's incredibly useful. Thank you. I do find that it adds technical debt for a small company. Like I feel like that is a good percentage of what I need to do is manage and clean that up via COE kit. Do you have like someone dedicated to that kind of management?
No, we don't. So you see, we have 100,000 users. Our platform team, the admin team, is only 5 people.
Wow.
The whole platform management.
That's some pretty good efficiency.
Yeah. So we achieve the efficiency by using automation, right? Using all the existing tool that you have in your portal, right? To do a bit of automation and management of the portal.
Thank you so much.
Do they have it extended according to your needs, like have additional automation, like extend the COE kit to do things that it doesn't give you out of the box? Because with 5 people having to manage these scale of apps, it just sounds like you'd have to have your own custom dashboards and different types of metrics that you'd be looking for. And, you know, there'd be additional automations that would be needed. So you don't have to have someone dedicated looking
Yeah,
at it
yeah.
every day, right?
That's right. Yeah. There's a lot of PowerScript as well in the background, right? By these 5 people, they build also the PowerScript to run the automation for them. So let's say a new person join on board. What do you need to set up? Press a button, run the script, bang, they get everything right they need. Welcome email, how to sign up, blah blah blah. Right?
So anyone else have any questions or any thoughts you'd like to share? Alan, we really appreciate you taking the time on a weekday evening to come share all of this insightful information with us. Thank you so much for joining us in this. Yeah, we probably have a lot to think about and, you know, kind of noodle upon now that we have some ideas on how to scale and how to adopt, some really good ideas out there that I think every organization should adopt and work through for sure. And
thanks for inviting me, and I hope everybody gain a bit of insight from my story. And feel free to connect. No, I'm available. If you want to connect in LinkedIn or Twitter, yeah, I'm available for you all. I'm based in Houston, not too far away from Dallas. So if for those who are based in Dallas, right? So happy to assist.
Yep, I will drop Alan's Twitter handle in here for you guys. If anyone is interested in, you know, connecting with him, and you can always find him on LinkedIn as Alan Shai. I'm going to drop that here. That's the handle there. You should be able to use that. And well, thank you everyone for joining and for taking the time out on a weekday evening to come join the user group. And as always, we appreciate all your support. And hopefully you enjoyed this last session for the year, and we look forward to having more next year. And if I don't talk to any of you before that, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year as well. We'll see everyone soon next year.
Okay. Take care.
Happy holidays.
Bye.
Thank you
Happy
so much,
holidays.
Alan and Geetha. Appreciate it.